All right, God help us. So we're talking about these three big chunks of time that are being observed by our prophets. They're living through this. It's a little bit like, imagine us keeping like a plague diary of pandemic, keeping journals and watching our political situation as it falls apart and hoping that it comes back together again. And
You cut out.
Oh dear.
We're not hearing you.
hang on a second. I'm going to do one more thing. Please bear with me. Okay, let's see if that microphone helps any. I'm now using a different microphone, and I'm hoping that it helps.
The
Yes?
sound quality is better.
The sound quality is better, yippee. Okay, fine. The thing I wanted to say is that Ezekiel, who we don't hear in these 10 Haftarot, he is living in Babylonia at the time of the when Babylonia rules the world. And so his life is being structured by the fact that he lives in exile. He lives and he dies in exile. His prophecy is entirely an exile prophecy. He sees at the end of his life no hope for what's going to happen to the Jewish people. Isaiah, on the other hand, who, if we get to him today, we're going to see, has a sense of hope of what could possibly happen because he has seen a kind of resurgence after the downfall in Babylonia. He has seen the rest of it. And when I say he, I don't mean the original he. The problem is that Isaiah, the thing that we call the book of Isaiah, spans over 100 years of history and includes those sections which were written by a second and maybe even a third Isaiah. So the book of Isaiah spans past the Assyrian Empire to where he sees the possibility of the resurgence of life in Israel proper. So he has a hopeful message at the end. Today, we're going to look at that second Haftarah, the one that is intended to be read for Parshat Maseh. Last week, the Torah portion was Pinchas, but we read the Haftarah for Matot, so that we could get in 3 Haftarot of rebuke before we hit the ones of consolation, all right? So this week, if you go to Shul on Shabbat, or if you zoom into Shabbat services, you're going to hear the Haftarah for Maseh. And that's fine because that portion, the Torah portion on Shabbat is a double. It's Matot Maseh. So after tomorrow, we will be sort of up to date, as it were. Okay, I'm going to do 2 things. First, I'm going to share my screen and show you that timeline that we were talking about. All right. Now, the reason that there is a question mark around this section here at 13:12 is not only are we not sure about the timing, because of course it was 3,300 years ago, but we're not really, we have no evidence that Moshe was a person. Moshe could have been a story. Moshe could have been many, many things. Moshe was not necessarily a historical person. I'm just going to take a look at the chat to make sure I'm not missing something. Okay, no, we're good. So that's why that is in. Has a question mark next to it. The next thing does not, because the biblical judges, the people that we think of as living in the time of Joshua, we have extant information about them. By which I mean we have writing about that time period that exists in not Jewish writing, right? Anything that exists in only one source is not reliable. Things have to exist in more than one source. And by the time of King Saul, for example. By the time of David, by the time of the temple, we already have writings by Egyptians, by other people are writing about the events that are happening in our little corner of the world. And that is how we verify the position of these people in actual time. That we can coordinate the timeline where they're living with what other people say in terms of how they are carrying their calendar. Everybody good? All right, so that's how we know. By the time we get to the biblical judges and King Saul, which means Solomon and the judges before Solomon, when we get to King Saul and King David and the temple, all of that is documented. And although we could be off by 10 years in one direction or another, we're not off by 1,000 years or even 100 years, okay? So this is this map that I was talking about, which shows, and those of you who have a hard copy of it can see, here at the top is the kingdom of Israel, the northern kingdom. Down here in this kind of orange stuff is the kingdom of Judah. The reason that the kingdom of Israel bulges out over on this side of the Jordan River is because of the biblical request of the tribes of Reuven, Dan, and the Mate, the half tribe of Manasseh, who when they see the land on this side of the Jordan, they say, it's really good. We want to stay there. And so they make an arrangement that they will stay on this side of the Jordan where they can have their flocks, where it's a good land for them, but that they will function as shock troops. They will be the first ones into battle to help win the possession of the land. And then they will go back and they will settle on this side of the Jordan. So in this green, this slightly off green section at the top are 10 of the 12 tribes. 10 tribes. When the Assyrian Empire invades, they scatter these tribes, which is why they are lost. These 10 tribes go missing, so to speak, at the time of the Assyrian invasion. And we're left down here with the tribes of Judah and Levi, right? The only two tribes that are left here. Levi is the tribe of the priesthood. So from there, we're going to get the Kohanim and the Leviim. Those are our priests. And the rest of us are all just regular Yehudim of the tribe of Judah, which is why when we call people up to the Torah, the first aliyah goes to a Kohen from the tribe of Levi. The second aliyah goes to a Levi from the tribe of Levi. And the rest of us, we get the other 5 aliyot or whatever, okay? All right. So now we are at this point at 931 BCE, the two kingdoms split. We have the kingdom of Israel and the kingdom of Judah, and they split. They have two different kings, and they're fighting each other, which is kind of a prescription for destruction on so many different levels. Here's the prophecy of Isaiah in approximately 740 to approximately 722. So first Isaiah is going to be in this chunk of time. Second Isaiah, we think, is in the period of time from about 710 to about 680, right? And third Isaiah is going to be in the period from about 680 after, and honestly, we don't have clear dates for that. Okay? Hezekiah of Judah, he may not have lived long or reigned long, but anybody who's been through his water tunnel has to know good stuff. He knew his stuff. Great water tunnel. King Josiah takes the throne when he's a very young boy, and he tries to institute major reforms. He's the one who says, oops, we have sinned and we're coming back. Then he begins to sort of fall off the wagon. He's going to lose his life in battle at around 586. By that time, Jeremiah is in full swing and he is saying, the people have messed up and there's going to be hell to pay. He is deported in the first wave of deportations of the movers and shakers of the kingdom of Judah. He is deported to Babylon, and the temple is destroyed in 586. Okay? Jerusalem falls to King Nebuchadnezzar, and Solomon's temple is destroyed. And just to update, in the middle here, around 450, Cyrus of Persia sends the Jews back. He says, rebuild your temple and put in a good word for me, which is why a lot of Jewish kids are named Cyrus, and why the temple had a special, like a thing for Cyrus. Second temple is built in about 430 of the Common Era, of the BCE, before the Common Era, and destroyed in 70. Okay? All right. So just so we know, that's where we are. Okay. So now we're going to go to our Haftarah. Now that we have spent a bunch of time trying to get my sound right and everything else, we're going to go directly to our Haftarah. I am working with Sefaria, which is my thing of choice. Last week when we left off, so anybody who is interested in knowing how this all is put together can go to Sefaria. I'm going to go occasionally to some commentary, but mostly I just want to read, okay? Last week, this is the end of the Haftarah that we read for last week, that the word of Adonai came saying, Devar Adonai Lemor, go and proclaim to Jerusalem, thus says God. Remember this image that we said about James Dean on his motorcycle riding off into the sunset with the girl? I accounted to your favor the devotion of your youth, your love as a bride, how you followed me in the wilderness in a land not sown. It's so sweet. This is the end of last week's Haftarah. Kodesh Yisrael Ladonai. Israel is holy, is sacred to Adonai. Reshit Vuato, the first harvest, right? Israel is the first, the beloved. Kol ochlav yashamu. All those who ate of it became guilty. Why? He's going to go on to tell us. Ra'at tavo alehem ne'um Adonai. Bad stuff is going to befall them. Thus says the Lord. That's where we ended last time. So now we're ready to pick up at verse 4, right? We pick up Jeremiah exactly where we left off. Who would like to read for us in English? Any English readers? You have to just pipe up because I can't see you all.
I'll start.
Okay, now.
Hear the word of God, O house of Jacob, every clan of the house of Israel. Thus said God, what wrong did your ancestors find in me that they abandoned me and went after delusion and were deluded? They never asked themselves, where is God? Who brought us up from the land of Egypt? Who led us through the wilderness, a land of deserts and pits, a land of drought and darkness, a land nobody had traversed. Keep going.
Yeah, you got one more sentence.
Where no human being had dwelt.
Let's just stop right there. Okay, so now after Jeremiah, last week it was all about his getting his calling, God, tapping him on the shoulder and saying, I knew you before you were born. I knew you before even the sperm and the egg met. I knew you. And before those events, I designated you as a prophet. So now, this is still God talking, right? Jeremiah is channeling God's words. And who's the amanuensis? Baruch ben Neriah, right? Jeremiah's secretary is writing all this down. Jeremiah is dictating. He says so in about chapter 20. he says, he called upon Baruch ben Neriah and said, write this down. And he writes everything down. Okay, so now, here's what's going on. God says, look, did you somehow find that I, your God, was in error? Did I screw up? No, I did not screw up. I am not the one who is wrong here. You didn't even look for me. Your ancestors did not even search after me. They never even bothered to ask. Oh, yeah, there was God who did all of this great stuff, who led us through the desert. And now here's this description of the desert that Jeremiah gives us through, or that God gives us through Jeremiah, a land of deserts and pits and drought and darkness. And, you got led through all of that. I, your God, did that. And what fault did you find in me? All right, somebody else who would like to read?
I brought you to this country of farmland to enjoy its fruits and its bounty, but you came and defiled my land. You made my possession abhorrent. The priests never asked.
Right, wait, hang on a second, one thing at a time. Okay, so I brought you here. What do we call Israel traditionally? Eretz Zavat Chalav Udvash, a land overflowing of milk and honey, a land where you need two people to carry one cluster of grapes. I mean, you could not have asked for a better land. And remember, they come into the land in the north. What's in the north of Israel? Those of you who've been there.
Lots of water, flowing
The
rivers.
Hula Valley. Right? The Jordan, which comes down, that waters everything. The Hula Valley, where if you spit, it's going to grow words. It's an amazingly lush green. It's not the way we think about that desert that we came through. We're brought into this land of enormous fertility and growth and everything. And you people, you came into Eretz Zavat Chalav Udvash, and you made
Stank
it
it up.
filthy. What?
You stank it up.
You stank it up. You stank it up. And not just you people who should have known better, but really, who should have known better? Go ahead, Roberta.
Where am I up to?
Or whoever was reading. I'm sorry, whoever was reading.
The
I was
priests.
reading, but where I'm looking, the priests never asked themselves, where is God? The guardians of the teaching ignored me. The rulers rebelled against me, and the prophets prophesied by Baal and followed what can do no good. Oh,
Okay,
I
so
will
that
go
needs
on.
a little. Well, hang on a second. Hang on. I mean, I like I'm on a tear here. Okay, so first of all, the people stank it up. But look, the priests didn't do their job. The teachers didn't do their job. The rulers, the kings, right? Everybody begged the prophet Samuel, make us a king, give us a king. So he gave us a king. The kings rebelled against, and even the prophets, and this is a prophet talking, even the prophets. Remember last week we said there wasn't just one at a time, there were bunches of them. And even those prophets prophesied by Baal and followed this, what can do no good, acharei lo yo'il, which if you put quotations around these words, acharei lo yo'il, it means you followed a no goodnik. You followed no goodness. You followed nothing good,
Something impotent.
right? You followed something impotent. Thank you for that word. You followed something that was not capable of doing good. All right? Why? What were you following? You were following the work of your hands. Hang on. I just want us to. Why are you not going where I want you to go? Oh, okay, never mind. Not going to worry about it. All right. There. Now you do that. Thank you so much. Blah, blah, blah. So I wanted you to see the Rashi on this. My connection is just incredibly slow, so I apologize for that. No, Abarbanel, I want Rashi. Okay, so who are those who held on to the Torah? They're the Sanhedrin. Rashi's talking about the Sanhedrin, all those rabbinical judges who should have known the truth, right? And the rulers of the kings, and the ones who prophesied by Baal, okay? So let's just look at this next section. Does somebody else want to read?
I can read if you want. Sylvia.
Go right ahead. Sylvia, go right ahead. Let me just give you a clear screen. Here you go.
Thank you. Can we hear it? Oh, I will
Right
go
there.
on accusing you. Yep. Okay. Oh, I will go on accusing you, declares God, and I will accuse your children's children. Just cross over to the isles of Kittim and
Kittim.
look. Kittim and look. Send to Kedar and observe carefully. See if aught like this has ever happened. Has any nation
more.
changed its God, even though they are no gods? But my people has exchanged its glory for what can do no good. Ooh.
Okay, so let's back up. So God says, okay, listen, I've got a bone to pick with you. And not only am I going to pick this bone with you, but I am going to extend it forward into the generations. You know, in Deuteronomy, it says that a time will come when children will not be held account for the sins of the parents. But in Tisha, which is back in Shemot, God says, I forgive iniquity for the for the generation, the third and the fourth generation. I hold you responsible. I forgive iniquity, but I'm going to punish al shaleshim va'al ribeim, to the third and to the fourth generation, right? That there's this sense of punishment that goes forward in time. And by the way, go look at the other countries, go look at the other cultures and see if they've ever done something like this. Even though those other nations, they worship what? They're worshiping what? Idols. They're worshiping the work of their hands, metal and wood and stone and whatever they can carve. And even though they are worshiping idols that can do no good, that are not useful, they still stick with them. At least they have, you could say they have at least the faith and the firmness of their convictions. They stick with their idols. But you, who had a living God, you just walked away from me. You had a God that performed miracles for you, and you just ignored me. Oopsie doopsie. Go ahead, Sylvia, read a little more.
Be appalled, O heavens, at this. Be horrified, utterly dazed, says God. For my people have done a twofold wrong. They have forsaken me, the fount of living waters, and hewed out for themselves cisterns, broken cisterns that cannot even hold water.
Okay, so now God is accusing the people, and God is using, and Jeremiah, we have to say, Yirmiyahu is using this metaphor of what's good water and what's crappy water. Good water is God. God is living water. And if you think about all the different ways in Torah where water is a symbol of God, it follows us through the desert, Miriam's well. It comes gushing out of a rock. Water is a symbol of God's bounty and God's blessing and God's mercy. And really, potable water is God's thing, so to speak. Right? And God even says to Moshe, I'm going to give you the water of Marim is bitter, right? I'm going to show you this stick, Me Merivah. I'm going to show you this wood, and you're going to throw it into the waters, and it's going to make it sweet. Not only is God the fount of good water, but God takes brackish water and makes it sweet. But no, you guys absolutely walked away from good, clean, beautiful, pure water, And what did you do? You just dug a pit and drank whatever brackish junk came up through it. You made for yourselves broken cisterns, right? You dig a pit. You are supposed to, in order to hold on to water, you're supposed to pitch the sides of the well so that the water doesn't just drip away. But no, you made cisterns or capture basins for water, and they weren't even good basins. You know, you have no sense of what you're doing here. Somebody else come and read. Another voice.
I'll,
Go ahead.
is Israel a bondman? Is he a homeborn slave? Then why is he given over to plunder? Lions have roared over him, have raised their cries. They have made his land a waste, his cities desolate without inhabitants. Those two
Jeremiah,
in-
hang on a second. So Jeremiah is saying, look, you've already seen what happens when you turn away from God, when you don't fulfill God's mitzvot, when you don't take care of the poor and the weak, when you don't treat each other with the kind of dignity that you all deserve, what happens is the Assyrians come in and tear everything apart, and it's crap. So you can look to the north. Remember that Jerusalem is right smack on the border between the southern and the northern kingdom. Jerusalem is only just like, I don't know how many miles away from what would have been the border with the northern kingdom. It's not like they don't know all those people of the temple, all those people in Jerusalem. They know what's going on and what happened just to the north. They know that their brethren, even if they've been at war, have been taken over and plundered and destroyed, and that wild animals are roaming through the cities because they've taken over the land. Okay? Go ahead, Jerry.
Jerry. His cities
Jerry.
without inhabitants. Those two in Nof and Tapan, what is it? V'tacha Panches will lay bare your head. See, that is the price you have paid for forsaking the eternal your God who led you in the way. What then is the good of your going to Egypt to drink the waters of the Nile? And what is the good of your to Assyria to drink the waters of the Euphrates?
Okay, very good, very good. Okay, so what they're talking about, what Jeremiah, God through Jeremiah is talking about, is the fact that after seeing what happened to the northern kingdom, what does the kingdom of Judah do? It makes alliances, and it makes alliances with Egypt, which is an insane concept given what we know about Egypt. And they make alliances. They try to say, okay, well, I mean, I'm just going to ask, President Zelensky, how does it work out for you if you look at the invader and say, well, okay, so you've got that part, you're going to stop there, right? So there you are, stop there. When you have the waters of the Jordan, which come down like, my last trip to Israel, I went up to Tel Dan, and I saw this gushing, rushing, sweet, clear, beautiful, pure water that comes down from 3 rivers to form the Jordan River. 3 springs, not rivers, 3 huge springs of fresh water that come down to make the Jordan River. You've got the Jordan River. Why are you going to Egypt to drink the Nile? Why are you trying to make peace with Assyria? Okay? Not going to be good. Somebody new. Bonnie, you started. You said you wanted to. Go for it.
Let your misfortune reprove you. Let your afflictions rebuke you. Mark how bad and bitter it is that you forsake the eternal your God, that awe for me is not in you, declares my sovereign God of hosts.
Stop there. It's a big thing. Okay. So there are 2 things. The word tochichuch, which is hard to say, is about rebuke. Tochachot is a series of rebukes. That's what we call that section in Kitavo, where there's just one horror story after another in the Torah, right? Where the Torah just pours out and tells exactly what is going to happen to you. And now here's the thing. Jeremiah knows that he is going to see all these horrors, right? He's already had visions of it. He knows how bad and how bitter it is going to be. And in fact, one of the reasons that we read Echa, Lamentations, on Tisha B'Av is because it's supposed to be Jeremiah who wrote it, that he lived through it. He watched what happens when the Babylonians come in and completely wipe out Jerusalem, and when people are roaming in the streets without food, where they have nothing. And he says, this misfortune that's coming, it is going to top everything. It's going to be worse than the Assyrians, worse than your life in Egypt. It's going to be worse than everything. And part of the reason it's going to be worse is why? Because you forsake the eternal your God. I mean, it was one thing in Egypt where you barely knew that God was yours. And that was one thing. But when you have no respect for God, it's all going to be seriously bad news. Let's just do a little more, okay? Go ahead, Bonnie.
For long ago, you broke your yoke, tore off your yoke bands, and said, I will not work. On every high hill and under every verdant tree, you recline as a whore.
Now, what does that refer to? High hills and under verdant trees.
Idol
So-
worship.
Yeah, it refers to idol worship because these are the places where the priests of Baal set up little altars. Altars would be on high hills, and altars would be under beautiful trees, and this is where there would be pillars that were little signposts to the various gods. In the book of Judges, it says that in Joshua rather, it says that when Joshua leads the troops into the land and they take over places, what does he say? He says, tear down kol ha'ashtarot, all the little idols to Ashtarah, and all of the high places, tear them all down. But no, you Israel, you people, you have gone backwards. You've gone backwards to the place where kol giv'ah, gavoha, all high places, v'tachat kol eitz ra'anan, and every lovely smell good tree, that's where you have gone to be a zonah, to be a whore. And I just wanted to point out how beautiful the language is in Hebrew. Because al kol giv'ah gavoha, on all high heights, v'tachat kol eitz ra'anan, and under every fragrant tree. Right? From the heights of the heights and under the boughs of beautiful fragrant trees, you spread your legs for every god that anybody ever carved. Let's keep going because it would be stunning to finish this, which of course is not my strong suit, but we'll try. Somebody else. Annette, are you there? Do you want to read?
Yeah, I was raising my hand. I don't know if you could see it. Okay. I planted you with noble vines, all with choicest seed. Alas, I find you changed into a base, an alien vine. Though you wash with natron, and
Yeah, think of it as being like lye. Lye soap.
and use much lie, your guilt is ingrained before me, declares my sovereign God. How can you say
Go
I
ahead.
am not defiled? I have not gone after the Baalim. Look at your deeds in the valley. Consider what you have
Yeah.
stop. Done.
No, this, keep going, keep going.
Like a lustful she-camel restlessly running about. Or like a wild ass used to the desert, snuffing the wind in her eagerness, whose passion none can restrain. None that seek her need grow weary. In her season, they'll find her.
What are we talking about?
Oh, no.
All right, so the metaphor is the metaphor of an animal in heat, right? If you have ever had a dog or a cat that is not neutered, a female dog or cat, and they go into heat, you will find that every animal from miles around somehow is at your front door waiting, right? We had a dog that we bred, so when that dog went into heat, my goodness, the horrible noises that we heard from the neighborhood, the smell of it was everywhere. And I'm talking about a dog that didn't go out much, and certainly didn't go out unsupervised because she was a breed. So what God through Jeremiah, what Jeremiah is saying is, you are so eager to go whoring after other gods that it's as if you're in heat. Everybody can find you. Every somehow God, every they can all find you, right? I mean, and they're all after you. They're all going to grab you. And in a way, I think about what it would have been like if you were in a country and there were all these really slick, gorgeous, beautiful statues, maybe with flowers around them and everything, and all the clever people were hanging out and bowing there. And you would say, well, it's pretty. What harm is there? What harm is there? Who's gonna care? So I have a moment with this statue. You know, my neighbor thinks it's cool. It could be cool. It's that feeling that you're going after the next cool thing. And in this case, the next cool thing is a different God. So once you have it in your smell, once you have this taste for going after different gods, well, then they can all come and satisfy you. Go ahead, Annette.
Save your foot from going bare and your throat from thirst. But you say it is no use. No, I love the strangers, and after them I must go.
You see, God says, look, why are you making yourself a whore, tearing off your clothes and going after, no, you just say, no, this is okay. It's all good. Little more. We're almost done with this Haftarah. I'm determined.
Like a thief chagrined when caught, so is the house of Israel chagrined. They, their kings, their officers, and their priests and prophets. They said to wood, you are my father. To stone, you gave birth to me. While to me they turn their backs and not their faces. But in their hour of calamity they cry. Arise and save us. And where are they?
There, okay. So, no, hang on a sec. Okay, so there we have it. Now, first of all, I just want to say it's gorgeous poetry, isn't it? I mean, the poetry is beautiful. Susan Allen, I know you're there somewhere. I hope you're enjoying this because the poetry is so beautiful. The metaphors, remember, the fact that Jeremiah uses all these different objects and fabrics and materials to make his point and to show what's going on. He uses all of that is really kind of stunning. But if you are looking for something, if you're a Haftarah, what is one of the prerequisites of being a Haftarah? What do you have to have if you're a Haftarah? You cannot end on calamity. You're not permitted to end on calamity. It's a big fat no-no. So we skip, right? The Haftarah actually skips and goes to the third chapter of Yirmiyahu. Hang on. Wait, I'm sorry, I just need to look something to get, I thought I had like this peg mark, this bookmarked. Give me a sec.
Your voice is breaking up again too. You're sounding like you're underwater.
I'm underwater. 1 second. So now we go to chapter 3, verse 4. Okay? Just now you called me Father, right? Halome ata, finally you have called me Avi, ata, Avi. Aluf ni'urai ata, you are the companion of my youth, right? So now you've decided that God is indeed where you want to be. Somebody else who hasn't read. Anybody who wants. I can't see hands, so somebody who wants to just jump in there. No? Ray?
Does one hate for all time? Does one rage forever? That is how you spoke. You did wrong and had your way. God said to me in the days of King Josiah, have you seen what rebel Israel did, going to every high mountain and under every leafy tree and whoring there?
Okay, so now hang on a second, Ray. So all we do is we tack on the Haftarah in the Sephardic tradition tacks on a different one, but in the Ashkenazi tradition, we tack on just this verse, verse 4, which ends with, you are the companion of my youth. Okay? So we have finally a note on which we can end. It goes from verse 27. You said to the wood, you are my father, right? From verse 27, Omrim la'etz avi ata, and then we skip and we go to verse 4 here, and we say, but now you call to me and call me Father. You return to God, you say to me, companion of my youth. And that's the end of this Haftarah, okay? So now we have set up.
It makes it sound like, oh, things are getting better now, but I just from what the part I saw, it looks like, no, it's actually going to get worse again.
It's got to get worse, but it's going to get worse before it gets better. It's not going to get better. But we do need some kind of way to end this Haftarah, and that's where we end it, okay? So now,
Question.
we have, go ahead.
If we're reading this now, and we're not supposed to go under beautiful trees or high beautiful places, I know we're not supposed to make altars and worship there, but does that mean we shouldn't go to art galleries and look at beautiful statues and things like that?
No, I think you're talking about exactly the difference. The point is that if I go sit under a tree, it's a tree. And if I go look at, as I did in Florence, yes, at all that amazing statuary, it's statues. I think, what an amazing sculpture.
As long as we don't worship them.
As long as we're not worshiping them. So Jeremiah isn't saying you can't go, he's saying you hoard in those locations. You practiced this disgusting trait. And why is it so disgusting? Because you had a God. You had a living God, a God of living waters. You had a God that did miracles for you, and the whole world knew about it because the whole world talked about it. Ooh, their God has done wonders. Look what happens. And yet, time goes by and we forget. And in kind of support of Israel, the age of miracles was a long time ago when they lived. I mean, if we think that the Exodus from Egypt is 1300 BCE, and they're living in the 700s, well, that's like 600 years ago. And yes, it's true, that's no excuse for going after idols, but it's not a reason, it's an excuse. It explains it.
People
That's
forget.
it. It's not an excuse, it's an explanation. People forget. And also, when the Israelites conquer the land, when Joshua leads us in and we conquer the land and everybody's busy divvying up the land, remember, daughters of Tzlofchad, we're all getting our pieces. At that time, what's the dominant culture? We are, because we've just gone through a war. There are no more. We've conquered the Hittites, the Yebusites, all of these other people are either conquered or much diminished. What's the dominant culture? The Israelite culture. Everybody is focused. But over time, the Philistines are coming up and down the coast. The Sumerians are coming. I mean, like, there are all these other cultures coming in and through. Remember that Israel occupies this amazingly important piece of geography, then as it does now, that it is the place where everything goes through from the Far East on its way up the spice route. Everything goes through Israel. From Egypt, which was still the breadbasket of the world, everything goes through Israel. And so all of these different cultures are coming in and settling because it's nice and all sorts of stuff is going on, right? And hundreds of years go by and the people begin to pick up different habits. And it happens over time, and it's slow. It's like the drip, 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 right? And Jeremiah is saying, you're not even aware. Isaiah said the same thing. You're not even aware of what you're doing. You had a God, you're ignoring your God. Do you think that all you have to do is shecht a goat every so often or a lamb, and that's good enough? It's not good enough. And Amos and Hosea and all of these prophets, they're all doing the same thing. Sylvia.
I think this is like really fascinating. And when you come through history, we have, as the Enlightenment is starting, so is the Hasidic movement, which is really, we can see, I mean, I can anyway, I don't know if it's true, but that a reaction to the beginnings or whatever of the effects of the Enlightenment on European Jews, which is that we become more assimilated. And they're there and saying, don't do this, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. So we have parallels in history, right? We have parallels. We can see this. So this is this early assimilation. Israelites become assimilated to the Assyrians. Nope, no good. They become assimilated to the Greeks. Not a good idea. You know, like all of those assimilations, they're going to take us further and further from God. And then there's a bounce back, right? There's a bounce back. The Second Temple, we get our temple back. Now we're doing well. You know, Herod makes it bigger. Bigger is better. We're doing great. And then there's and the Romans come in and wipe it out again. And then we say, oops. And I don't know how many people are familiar with the story of, oh my gosh, Hamsa and Bar Hamsa. Hamsa and Bar Hamsa. This is an explanation of the destruction of the second temple, right? So the second temple, the first temple is just dandy, and it's destroyed. The Israelites are sent back. They build the second temple. They put in a good word for Cyrus. Things are beginning to fall apart and fall apart. The first temple is destroyed because of what? Jeremiah tells us why. Because of idolatry, right?
Yeah, corruption
Because
and
of going after, right, idolatry, whoring after other gods, however you want to see it. Jeremiah tells us why the first temple is destroyed. But the second temple, why is it destroyed? The priests are making the sacrifice. Sinat Hinam. So does everybody know the story? Because I won't repeat it if people know
No.
it.
No,
This is a story that takes place in the time of the Romans, all right? At the time of the Romans, there was a man who had two friends. Two people he knew. His friend was named Kamsa, and his enemy was Bar Kamsa. So this man decides to throw a big, fat, fancy party. And he sends his servant to invite his friend, Kamsa. And by accident, the friend takes the invitation to Bar Kamsa. And Bar Kamsa says, whoa, well, I guess he's trying to make friends. How nice. He shows up at the party. When he sees them, the host is enraged. And he sends his servant to throw him out. And the servant goes up, and Bar Kamsa says, okay,
you invited me.
I got an invitation. Something's wrong. Please don't embarrass me. Please don't embarrass me. I'll pay for all my food. The servant goes back to the host. Host says, no, get rid of him. He goes back. He says, no, you got to go. Everybody who's anybody, all the elite to meet are there, right? The high priests, all the big guys are all there. Bar Kamsa says, please let me stay, and I will pay for everything that everybody eats. I'll pay for this entire, blowout party. But the host says no, and eventually he is thrown out. He's embarrassed, he's embarrassed in front of all of the most prestigious and important people of Jerusalem. And so what does he do? He goes to the Roman governor of the time, and he says, if you send an animal to be sacrificed in the temple, the Jews won't take it, won't accept it. That's how much they hate you. So the Roman governor decides to send a sacrifice, and he ships off a calf. On the way of taking the calf to the rabbis, to the temple, Bar Kamsa comes and takes a razor blade and cuts the calf right near the eye. So now it is damaged goods, not be sacrificed. When the calf is presented to the rabbis, they have a problem. To the priests in the temple, do we sacrifice this even though we're not supposed to because it's damaged and we anger the Romans? Do we sacrifice this and anger God? Or do we reject this sacrifice and anger the Romans? It's a lose-lose situation. They decide not to sacrifice it. And Bar Kamsa says to the Roman governor, see, I told you, they are plotting against you. They won't accept your sacrifice. And that is the cause, that is the reason that Vespasian marches in to Jerusalem, where Bar Kamsa has prepared the ground. And it's the reason that the second temple falls, because of sinat chinam, baseless hatred. The hatred of Kamsa and Bar Kamsa, the hatred of Bar Kamsa, the host for Bar Kamsa, right? That this is the reason that the temple falls. not for any other reason. We were making the sacrifices, we were keeping the commandments, and we were fulfilling our obligations at the temple, and we weren't worshiping other gods. But the second temple is destroyed because there isn't unity among the people, which is why in the study materials, you'll see that there's a little piece of Talmud where God says, if there's peace among them, I cannot, even if they worship the stars, if they worship the stars, but there is peace among them, I cannot destroy them. God says, if there is peace, if they treat each other the way that they should as brethren, then even if they were worshiping idols, I couldn't destroy them. So Jeremiah is saying, we completely blew it.
So
Completely,
infighting among different sects of Jews is absolutely forbidden.
Well,
if we
I
don't-
mean, it's
even
a
if we-
bad thing.
Even if we don't approve of what this group or that group does, we can't.
Correct. This is correct. That we live with a huge range of experiences and a huge range of ways of being Jewish. I mean, I'm talking now, obviously.
I meant now.
Well, so the Torah, that the Talmud is saying that it is more important. I mean, there are lots and lots of stories in the Talmud that talk about one person going up against the many. I mean, I'm thinking of Achna's oven, the oven of Achna, which is this stove. Is it kosher? It's not kosher. It is kosher. Thank you, Sylvia. We'll see you next week. So there's anybody who needs to leave can leave, and I will send out the recording. There are lots of stories that say that when we have infighting, we have blown it. We really have blown it. The Talmud tells us this.
We're in
Okay,
trouble.
so next week, we are so in trouble, I'm telling you, on so many different levels, okay? This is it. This is life. Okay, my sweet people, thank you so much. I will send out the recording for anybody who missed it, anybody who couldn't stay for all of it, and I will see you next week. Stay cool, stay calm, stay happy.
Thank you.
Goodbye,
you.
everyone.
Ew.
Thank you.
Take care.
Right.